have is a nice one. Oh, my thing. Remember, my tea is on the table that this is hooked to. I came home and I had a package from DJ Trish. So I am going to do a VCLT video tomorrow. I'm actually going to listen to the CDs that she gave me. And then I'm going to include my thoughts in the video, but of course I'll keep listening to them. I love the CDs she sends me, and I love her. She is awesome. So DJ Trish, if you watch this, thank you so much. Expect a video tomorrow. Oh, and that reminds me, I don't know if any of you noticed. I mean, my fans out there, did you miss me? I actually took the week off. I was feeling very frustrated with just things going on in my life in general. And I just feel like, wow, I'm putting so much time and energy into YouTube, and I'm not doing things that I normally do. And that was okay, because at the beginning of YouTube, I really wanted to see what this was and how it works, and learn about editing. And I'm still going to do all that, but I also have to do the things that I love. I mentioned this last week. Like, I pretty much stopped reading books. I listen to them, but reading really relaxes me, and it excites me as well. I love reading. So I decided just to take the week off. I hardly responded to any videos. I didn't watch any. I didn't make or post any. I gave myself a week off, and so tomorrow I'm going to ease back in. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to start watching the videos that I missed from this week and responding. So I'm not giving up on YouTube. I took a week off. And so if you're one of my adoring fandom out there and you like, where's Garage Geek? Thank you if you did, but I'm sure no one noticed. Whatever. I took the week off, but I'm going to jump back in tomorrow. So this week, in addition to reading, I was catching up on a lot of shows. So one of the shows, a couple of shows I like to catch up on is I love watching Bill Maher on HBO, and I love watching John Oliver on HBO. Now, they're both new shows, but they approach it in different ways. Like, Bill Maher usually has panel discussions, right? But John Oliver just basically does what I'm doing. He talks to the camera. And in a couple of the episodes, like in his episodes, he always speaks at least half of the show on one topic. So he gives like basically a speech on it. And he covered recently two controversies I thought were really interesting. So I'm just going to touch on them. One was Qatar and FIFA and the sports. What is it? Soccer? I don't know any of that. Oh, World Cup. I'm so stupid with sports. Okay, but this, I thought when I first started watching, I'm like, World Cup, what's this going to be about? Boring. No, it was absolutely fascinating, because it was all about basically slave labor in Qatar that was used to build the stadiums for the World Cup. And I also have a little bit of a background in this, because I lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, and I lived in Kuwait for a year. And I know I went to Qatar at least once, right? And so what's happening in Qatar is very similar. It's happening in Saudi Arabia, probably even worse. So there, I was one of them, right? I was a migrant worker. I wouldn't say migrant, a foreign worker, right? But of course, I had a pretty nice job, right? I was a teacher. But so many of the migrant workers who go there are basically treated like slave labor. Number one, they don't have rights. If they, first of all, when you go to work there, they basically control you. They take your passport. I had mine taken away. They keep your passport. I think I had my passport taken away. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they take them from you. You know that before you go, but they take it and they keep it. And they, if you do anything wrong, like, you're subject to anything that they say. And so many of the workers who go there don't have, I don't know how to say this without being offensive, but they don't have like strong governments to back them up. there's so many atrocities and bad things that happen. I heard horror stories when I worked there, but they're they're often like hit, beat. Um, they work in horrible conditions. They can't, you know, protest or fight back or anything. If they even like if they were to so much like for example, if they ever hit their employer or something, oh no, it would be like forget it. Um so anyways, he did a really good job of breaking down what kind of conditions these workers lived in, and I actually saw this because I think when I was in Kuwait, I lived in I had a nice apartment in Kuwait, but right next to it there was another apartment building that another company had rented, and they had workers there from an Asian country, and I can't remember which. Sorry. I want to say like Laotians or, but I don't remember. It was so long ago, and I just remember like I went over and I talked to them a little bit. We couldn't make ourselves known. I just was saying hi to them, and I would see them washing and doing whatever in the backyard, not really a backyard, but where you put the garbage and stuff. And I would go and say hi, and I would talk to them and ask them about things. And there were a lot of them living in one apartment, which he covered. John Oliver covered in that. Like, I was the only one living in my apartment, but they had like multiple people, like 10 or more living in one small apartment. Oftentimes they don't have good plumbing. These people had plumbing because it was Kuwait. It wasn't as bad. But imagine like 10 people needing to use the one bathroom that the apartment has, and the sleeping conditions. And I just remember thinking, how bad that was. And I remember also when I was in Saudi Arabia, I knew a lot of the other I didn't know a lot of them. I knew some foreign workers, especially from Pakistan. And I remember hearing some of the stories, like the working conditions that they had, because they would, work in factories. And some of them would, work in as, like drivers, and how dangerous it was because of there's so many issues. I don't know. I don't think I'm doing this justice, but so many times, for example, if a woman got in the car and the guy had to drive the woman around, the woman had a lot of power because all she would have to say is that the guy tried to touch her, and that would be the end, and she could get that driver to do whatever she wanted. So they say that Saudi women don't have a lot of power options, but they do. There's a hierarchy because they can have power over the people who are below them in the hierarchy. And not to say that everyone takes advantage of it, but it's a cruel world. And I mean, I just heard so many different kinds of horror stories when I was over there. And let's move on. I'm just saying that episode of John Oliver about sponsorship in Qatar to get the World Cup stadiums built kind of like made me remember a lot of things that I had seen when I was in the Middle East. Another thing that he talked about that I thought was really interesting was about museums and how museums are being held accountable for what they have in their collections. So in the past, right, museums have gotten things in a lot of ways that were basically like looting. Like, people would go and they would just take stuff and then they would just bring it back and like sell it to museums. And so there's that. But then there's also the modern day of like, oh, here's this artifact, and I got it legitimately. I bought it, and so I'm going to sell it to you. But then really it was stolen or it was taken. And then the museum's kind of turning a blind eye to what's going on. But the issue is, should museums be required to return these artifacts to the countries of their origin, or should they be allowed to keep them since they bought them? And they did show, John Oliver showed a really, really kind of heartbreaking scene where these Native Americans were brought into a museum. The artifacts for their people weren't even on display. They had to go into the bottom of the museum, and they were all in all these boxes, and they were just kind of looking at it. They weren't allowed to touch them, and they were kind of just like, oh, this is my, the artifacts of my heritage, and they're just, nobody can see them. Nobody from our culture can even see them. We had to make an appointment just to go in and go to the bottom of the museum underground. And it's when they show it like that, it's heartbreaking, right? Because the things that they had were meant to be held and shared. And some of the reasons that they were giving is like, well, those people can't take care of the things, so we can take care of it better than they can. Which is like, when you think about it, that is so demeaning to hey, we have your artifacts, and since you're just gonna break them or whatever, we're gonna hold them for you because we're not gonna give them back. I mean, it's like what? Like, so demeaning or degrading, right? So I recommend watching that, because just for that one scene, it's like these poor Native Americans just want to use their tools, and yes, they'll probably get worn down over time, but they were created for like a shared kind of cultural experience. And I don't know, it's just really a heartbreaking thing. But the idea behind it is, how do we solve this issue, right? Because museums need people to come in and view. That's how they get their money. But then all of these artifacts come from cultures that would like to have their own. I mean, he did raise a couple of interesting ideas of how this could be solved. But it's just, I think this is a really interesting idea, especially right now, right? With everything going on with, cultural appropriation, and, museums owning, like having things that were basically robbed from other countries. And I don't know, it's a very interesting topic, and I thought that was a really cool thing to cover. Okay, so let's go on to a different topic. I'm going to talk about two other shows that I watched, and I know, Ben Rankins, don't skip ahead. I'm not going to give any spoilers. Zero. None. Okay, but I finished House of Dragons. Finally. And I had some complaints about House of Dragons in the middle. I actually think there's about 30 minutes of this show, of the whole season, that I think if you had shortened or cut, it would have been a perfect season. But the last 3 episodes kicked ass. They were amazing. And I was just like, by the last episode, my jaw was like, and I just like, what the hell? I started immediately, when is the next season? The ending was so good. And I'm glad I stuck through it, because wow, the ending was worth it. And in fact, the last 3 episodes had no filler. They were just like boom, 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 boom. So good. So, see, Mr. Rankins, I did not spoil anything. If you haven't watched House of Dragons and you are a Game of Thrones fan, you need to watch it. And you might have to skip a few parts, because there are a couple of scenes, and I'm talking like long sex scenes, that need to be like skipped over in a couple episodes. But stick with it. So good. And then I started watching The Last of Us on HBO. Now, I've played the games. I didn't get through the first game because it's a really tough game, and I kind of gave up. I do want to go back to it. But wow. So the first 2 episodes, they were very good. But the third episode, again, no spoilers. And this one is going to be hard because I can't really talk about it without spoiling it, but I won't. That third episode was so good. So different, so good, and it especially was so appealing to me. Loved it. That episode, I think, needs to win 25 Emmys. So, Last of Us, episode 3, wow. It really subverted some of my expectations, and so that's all I'm going to say. No spoilers for Last of Us. All right. Um, let's talk about some books that I read. So I finished a book called I have a picture of it. His Bloody. Oh, I'm at 26 minutes. Crap. I want to be done by 30. I guess I won't be though. Oh, look at this cool picture. This is right near my house. Like, look at those stairs. I need to go run those 5 times a day. Like, look at that. So the mailman keeps dropping off mail to like the wrong house. So I took three big things of like mail. It's not just letters. There's something inside of them. And I went and I dropped them off at the house that I keep getting the mail for. And right there, like 2 houses away were those stairs. And I was like, wow, those are worse than the Omen stairs. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but like they just go up and up and up and up. Imagine running those 5 times. Ooh. Okay, and you can see it's really funny because it's like the street. It's all like all graffitied, and then there's all this. There's like all these power lines going through it, and there's like downed. What do you call those? Palm tree fronds. So crazy. But anyways, I saw that today, and I thought I would share that with you. So this is the book, His Bloody Project by Graham McCrae Burnett. Yeah. So I had actually read this book before, and I didn't realize it. Like I thought I had only started it and returned it. And then when I got it back and I listened to the whole thing, I was like, oh, I've heard this, but it's such a good book. I didn't care. So I wanted to hear it again. Now, this one was, I'm like all awkward, the Man Booker Prize in 2016. And this author, as my friend pointed out, has a nominee in this year. I think it's called Case Study, which I also put on hold and I'm waiting for. And I think that's why I got this one again. Because of that. Now, what is this about? First of all, it was a little confusing because the name of the author is Graham McCrae Burnett, and then the full title of the book is called Documents Relating to the Case of Roderick McCrae, His Bloody Project. So I was thinking, like, was this written because it was his ancestor, because they have the same name? So I think it was pure fiction, but it's basically the book is in 2 parts. Well, actually multiple parts, but basically half of the book is the testimony of a criminal who committed a crime, a young criminal, and he wrote his basically his testimony, like his story, and so he writes it all out. And then the other half of the book is people surrounding his trial, describing not only in first person but in third person, like what's going on. So it was a fascinating look into poverty and like insanity, and like, for example, like the Roderick McCrae, who writes his story, comes from a very poor background. He's in an abusive environment, and he ends up murdering 3 people. But you can't always trust his testimony, right? And that's not spoiler. Like, they say that on the first page, right? Because they're like, oh, this is the trial documents of blah, 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 who did blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, I mean, this is not a spoiler. I mean, talking about the book is, but remember that many times you read a book like this of literature, not because of the plot, although it can be very exciting, but because of the writing. So I'm going to say, whether you know about this book or not, you've got to read it because it's compelling writing. The writer is really good. And so, like I was saying, you don't know whether you can trust the narrator fully, because we find out later in the trial there are certain things that he kind of blocks out or doesn't want to, who he himself can't even face. And I won't go into that with more detail because, you know, he does something which he doesn't even write about in his memoir. And then you have his lawyer, who is on his side. Not that he doesn't exonerate him for being a killer, but he wants to get him off on insanity for a couple of reasons. And then you have this other psychologist. Wait, what would you call him? A person who examines a witness to see if they're insane or not. And his part of the book is the most fascinating for me, besides the first part, because he is so, first of all, he's so snotty. The writer did such a great job of making this character. And he fosters an opinion that today we think is ludicrous, right? Like people who are ugly are just naturally sinful or prone to violence, right? And he goes on and on about this, and like, oh, if you come from this horrible background, of course you're gonna commit sins. Like if you come from a dirty background, whatever, like if you grew up in a dirty house, blah blah blah. So like he's so staunch in his opinions of this, and when you listen to it, it's really funny, but it's fascinating because during the trial he actually does make some really, really interesting points. But we know what kind of jackass this guy is, right? And he goes at length to put everybody down around him, and even the other examiner who is on the criminals side, basically. But anyways, I highly recommend this book. My friend also read this book, and she absolutely loved it too. So there you go. You have two people who highly recommend this book, His Bloody Project. Fun. All right. So the next book I read, and I'm going to be a little juvenile with this one because so I finished Ubik finally. And wow. Just wow. So reading this was like jumping into the Matrix. And at the very end, I felt like it was in oh my gosh. I'm drawing a blank again. What's that movie? Shoot. Okay, the director of Interstellar. The one where they go into people's dreams to find the kernel of where the dream began, and they try to change it, or the idea. What was that? Oh, Inception. I remembered. Okay. Reading the end of this was like the Inception. This book must have really been influential. This was put out in the late 60s, I believe. This book has got to have been influential on so much sci-fi. So here's the thing. I've always kind of stayed away from Philip K. Dick because I always thought he was someone like the guy who wrote Neuromancer, and I just do not like that book, Neuromancer. I think it's boring. And so I always kind of cottoned him to be like William Gibson. And it's just not like that. This book was phenomenal. Now, I think I read another Philip K. Dick, and I can't remember, but I'm certainly going to read more. This book was so crazy with the ideas. Like, it had my mind flip-flopping as I was reading it, trying to... And then, like, the very last chapter, he throws it all on its head. So, what does this book deal with? This book deals with, like, what is the nature of reality and religion and consumerism. It covers a lot in this short book. Now, the reason I'm going to say I'm going to get juvenile, because after I was done reading this, I started looking this stuff up online, and people have the funniest comments about, oh, this Dick was good, but it was really hard. Like, I know that. I don't know why I found that so hysterical, but everybody is making these comments about that, and I don't know. The juvenile, like, the junior high in me just laughs. Poor Philip K. Dick, he just had the wrong last name. But if you're into sci-fi and you're kind of interested in where, like, current sci-fi got so many ideas, like, I don't know how The Matrix could have been made without writers like this. Like, he must have inspired those kind of ideas. Like, I see the Matrix idea all through this. And I know Philip K. Dick wasn't the other one. I know the people from the Matrix also got a lot from Neuromancer, right? I just think that this is the better writer. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I think I have another of his books, and I'm going to read it soon. All right. After Philip K. Dick and his Bloody Project, I am reading these two. So the first is a short story book, and I think I talked about this last week because I read one story and I told you about it. So last night I read another story, and wow, was it nice. Now, this is an author that I really like, but my friend in Iowa, she really likes him. So she reads everything by him, and I kind of read him like that just to keep up with her because she's always reading him. But I really, really appreciate him as a writer. I think some of his longer novels are a bit bloated. Like, he just goes on and on, like the character does the same thing over and over again, but they're always well written. I won't fault that. But these are short stories, so there's none of that. So the second short story was about a man remembering an affair he had, a one-night stand with a girl that he worked with, who later sent him a book of poetry, Tonka poems. And that's all he has of her. She sent it to him in the mail, and they never saw each other again. She said she would. She wrote them herself. She bound them up in string, and she sent it to him. And they never saw each other again. So basically, he's remembering the experience. He can hardly even remember the girl's face, but he's remembering the poems, and he reads, some of the poems, and those poems help him reflect on life and relationships. Such a good story. So if you're interested, it's very short. And what is it called? I think it's called The Stone Pillow. Hold on, because that was a line in the poem. Okay, I can't. Anyway, you just have to take my word for it. No, you won't. On a Stone Pillow. On a Stone Pillow. So that's the second story in this book, and I've enjoyed both of them immensely. So I'm looking forward to keep reading that. And it's got such a cute cover. And then I continued reading. I actually started this, and I'm only 30 pages into it. And this is The Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. So he's another, I don't know if he's a giant in sci-fi, but he's certainly really famous, especially for Day of the Triffids. And I have that one. I'm gonna read it too. But this one is interesting. It's about what would happen if an alien race, I can't even think, were to attack Earth, right? But they did it from the water. So first, they don't like land on like land. They go to the water, and so I'm at the beginning of the book where they just see all these like meteors coming down, and they're starting to investigate it because it's happening all over the Earth, but only over water and only in areas where the water's deep. So they're not even sure if they're seeing it all. It's only like passing ships. They keep seeing all of these meteors. And so they're starting to investigate what's going on. And people have some theories. And so far, really good. I'm intrigued so far. And this is going to take longer because the writing is a little bit more dense than the Philip K. Dick one. I'll show you that one. You can see, like, right, it's like almost half of what's on each page. But still, so far the writing is really good. All right, and what am I going to end with? I'm going to end with 40 minutes already. Sorry, I'm going to just talk about one more thing, but I think I need to take a sip of my tea. If you're with me so far, thank you so much. So I'm going to end with the Academy Awards. So these are the ones that I've seen so far. Tonight, I really hope to watch Black Panther because it's on Disney Plus. And Angela Bassett, who I mentioned last week, she is the director of the Whitney Houston Lifetime movie, which I had to endure. So anyways, Angela Bassett is nominated for Best Supporting Actress in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But I'm just, generally looking forward to that because I love the Marvel movies. But that is something I could check off. And I think also it's up for either score or song. Yeah, it's up for original song Lift Me Up. And that's it. Also, a friend of mine, he bought the movie The Fabelmans. Yeah, The Fabelmans. And so that's one of the Best Picture nominees. So now I have access to another one. So he bought it on a streaming service that I have his code for. And so I have access to it now. So I need to get around to watching All Quiet on the Western Front. It's on Netflix. The Fabelmans, which I now have access to, and Top Gun Maverick, which I think is on Prime. So if I watch those 3 this weekend, I will have 6 out of the way. Because as I mentioned before, I already watched The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, and Everything Everywhere all at once. And so I need to, get cracking, because not only that, I have to watch all the shorts, all of the documentaries, all the foreign, as much as I can. So that was my week. Okay, so let me apologize to my viewers for swearing in this episode. I shouldn't have subjected you to all that vileness. I just had a bad day. If you have any thoughts about anything about what I'm struggling with my students, please, I'd love to hear it. Even, I don't know, if you don't know about the subject, but you just, want to chime in, please. I'd love to read your comments about the controversy that's going on. I think it's in California right now with the AP African American Studies class. I think that's a fascinating topic. To me, the controversy is the government telling them this is indoctrination and you must not teach it, versus colleges being like, hey, we're supposed to be colleges are supposed to be where thought happens, right? This is where ideas are. You're not supposed to stifle that, because so that seems to be the issue. Anything about, I mentioned about John Oliver, the Qatari sponsorship, and museums, House of Dragons and Last of Us. Don't put any spoilers, but if you've been watching or have watched them, please let me know in the comments. What do you think? His Bloody Project, or Ubik, the Academy Awards, and I think that covers everything. So I think this is my longest one yet. I'm not going to make a Philip K. Dick joke about this one being the longest one yet. Everybody, thank you for suffering through this with me, and I'll start watching your videos tomorrow. I promise to catch up.